Most glorious spirits, welcome back to another edition of Elements of Spirit, the weekly reading series from ediblespirit.com and your host, Michael Domitrovich. This is the ether reading for the week of March 13th. These are readings through the elements, the ether reading of the classical elements of earth, air, water, fire, and ether. The ether reading describes the space within which all of the other elements are vibing and manifesting, and you can think of these elements as the building blocks that create our physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual experiences in this life, on this earth, at this time. So I brought this reading series forward to be able to offer weekly guidance for how to work with these less visible aspects of our existence, for the non-visible, for the invisible experience that we all have that kind of creates the meaning in our life. The ether reading gives you a sense of what's going to go on this week, and then you can go in and check the readings that are associated with your astrological sun sign. So each of the sun signs has each of the zodiac signs has an associated element of earth, air, water, fire. Those associated elements are in the description for the ether reading below. You listen to the ether reading and then listen to your individual element and get a sense of how the two kind of combine and work out and interact. And then I give you an affirmation with each of these readings so that you have something to refer to and touch upon during the week when you need that reconnection with the elements that make you up, the elements of your spirit. So let's just see what comes up. Very interesting, very cool. We have this very cool image that is like one of those old school images of when we thought the world was flat, and not the visual artist to save the day, guys, but there's the, like the flat world with the water kind of going off the side. We are on the edge of the flat earth. What do you know to be true? It's time for the revolution of change in perspective. So they're showing this to me also with a sort of like slash mark. So we'll say, wow, and it looks like a Dreamcatcher now. Before and after awakening awareness. So so this is the ether reading. It's saying, like, in the ether, in the air, we are on the edge of the flat earth. We are at the limits of our current cosmology. This is it. This is the boundary. We cannot go any further with this outmoded perspective of reality. And it's taking us back to, who was it? I mean, was it, I can't remember, was it Galileo, Copernicus? I can't remember, but same kind of consciousness revolution is occurring as when we thought the world was flat to when it was round. And this week it's saying, let's pay attention to the before and the after, before the awakening and the awareness, and after the awakening and the awareness. And the bummer is that, like, we're not quite in the awakening awareness point. That's not what the elements are saying. That's not what the ether is saying. But the ether is saying, hey guys, gals, we are on the edge of the flat earth. What do you know to be true? So if we're living on a flat earth, affirming that it's a flat earth, but knowing that it's round. If you know it's round, stop affirming that it's flat. If you know the system is broken, stop affirming that it's fixed. A really good friend of mine, who I saw the other night, said something to me that was powerful that I'm going to actually leave out of this reading because it has a bit of a political bent. But what he was basically talking about was, like, politically, societally, what's going on, saying, like, if we look at the key players that are in power and they all want the same thing, even if it's just, I'm just trying to stay neutral, and they all want the same thing, why should we pretend that they don't all want the same thing? Why should we pretend? There's this kind of silence is the same thing as complicity, as well. And so the point my friend was making to me is that, like, if you see an injustice, if you see a wrong, if you see an ill, why talk around it? Why not speak up about what that injustice is or what that ill is? And now, good, to come from the neutral place, it's true on every side of the fence. It's like, if your heart is full of separation and dissonance and disconnection, and all you see is, your piece of the pie being taken away, speak up by all means, and advocate for yourself and for your brethren. But if you also feel a sense of unification and connection and relation to your fellow man, and you see signs in the world that are causing dissonance and disconnection and disavowal, then you have to speak up about that as well. And what this is saying is that, in the midst of this is the transition from an old world view, an old world cosmology, to a new world view, to a new world cosmology. And what the guidance is saying is, what do you know to be true? It's time for the revolution of change in perspective. So really what we're talking about is, don't worry about the before, don't worry about the after, don't worry about who's wrong or who's right, don't worry about whether you're with the good guys or the bad guys, because all of that shit just polarizes everything further. Speak to the awakening, speak to the awareness, speak to what you see changing, speak to the rift between the old world and the new world, speak up about it, be clear about it, be truthful about it, because this is a huge tipping point. It's a huge turning point, but really it's a huge tipping point. And what they're saying, what the guidance is saying, what the ether is saying is that, like, no, guys, gals, this is it. We can't go any further than this. This is the old model is done. It's broken. It doesn't work. It's over. So why pretend like it works, huh? Because it's so hard. How can I change? How can I even begin to change anything? How can I begin to address the systemic problems that are going on in all of these different planes of existence and experience and life and blah, 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 blah? Well, who says you can't? And if you sit on your hands and if you keep your mouth shut, not going to work. And this is not even an incite to riot. This is just saying, it's over. We're on the edge of the flat earth. We can't live in this model anymore. What do you know to be true? It's time for the revolution of change and perspective. So action is a thing, and maybe in the individual readings we'll see something about action. But as for now, ether is really saying awareness and awakening is actually more important than action. And you can affirm awareness and awakening through expression, through using your voice, through being articulate, through not calling out what someone else is doing wrong, not calling out what you're doing right, but we've spoken about this before in these readings, backing up and just calling out what you perceive to be true, because you might be the only one that sees it. And even if you're not the only one, you might be the only one in your community that sees it, or you might be the only one in your family that sees it. And the idea here is, like, and this is good guidance, it's saying the old model is broken. The new model has not established itself. So we are on the line between the old model and the new model. It might be a 50-year-long line. It might be a 2-year-long line. We change or die. So all that the guidance is encouraging is that you clearly articulate whatever awakening or awareness you have about the line between the old world model, which no longer works, and the new world model, which is arriving but not yet established. Okay, sorry, that was just pause. So I choose to speak the truth. Yeah, it's not very sexy, but I'm not going to second guess it this week. I choose to articulate the truth in support of a sustainable cosmology, or in support of a sustainable world model. um, Sustainable priorities is another good word. Priorities. So it's basically saying, you guys, also, like, if you feel like something's broken, if you feel like your life's not working, just saying you're probably right. Oh my gosh. I'm on retreat on a farm in the middle of the woods in southwestern Virginia. How I got here? Grace, period. And man, I feel so much fidelity to the viewers and followers and people that do, for whatever reason, listen to the words that are coming out of my mouth. And yet I'm so hard on myself for not producing more content all the time. And I produce a lot of content given everything that's going on in my own existence. And so I'm laughing, cracking up about this because I'm just cracking up about the fact that, like, whatever worldview, world model I used to use, like, doesn't work anymore. It's so broken. so the place I'm at in my practice is trying to patch together a new sustainable model, a sustainable worldview, sustainable perspective. So I like this. I choose to articulate the truth in support of a sustainable cosmology, in support of a sustainable worldview, in support of sustainable priorities. And the idea is, do this by any means necessary in your home, in your neighborhood, your community, in your country, if you are mobilizing on a national or global scale in the world, right? In this universe, maybe you are really truly an advocate for the great beyond, or for the ascended masters, or for Lord Jesus, or Mother Mary, or Buddha. Maybe you really know that you are here to relay the wisdom of the masters. Bring it. Create the worldview. I choose to articulate the truth of who I am, of what I believe, of what my experience is, in support of a sustainable cosmology, world model, or in support of sustainable priorities. So it's a little bit of a mouthful. I'll put some slashes into the affirmation, but I like this. It's kind of like a ding. It's time. For some reason this week, it's time. It's time. It's time. That's great. My guides are like, yeah, because the Venus retrograde has the mojo of a full moon behind it, of a Virgo full moon, which says it's time to create a new order. It's time to create a new order in service of our highest priorities. And what those priorities are is what this reading is about. I choose to articulate the truth in support of sustainable priorities. I choose to speak up about what we can reasonably sustain, what really matters, what's really important. I step ahead and I speak that truth. And guess what? Just because you have a truth, or the truth even, doesn't mean you're any better or worse than anyone else. Everyone is just doing the best they can to articulate their truth in the hopes of approaching the truth. Thank you for your time and attention and consciousness. I love doing these readings, and I love them, but I love doing them for you. So thank you. And blessings. See you next week. And check out the other readings. Descriptions of the signs and elements are below in this.